Just reading a few verses from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
I know you normally read this in the morning, but Satsy Devi pointed out a nice verse, so I'm just going to read a few verses leading up to that. See the context about Swarup Damodar Maharaj and Mahaprabhu and their relationship. And this is verse 103 from Madhya Leela chapter 10. Purushottama Chajatanna Nama Purvashame Navadipe Chilatin Prabhura Charane. When Swarup Damodar was residing at Navadip under the shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his name was Purushottama Acharya. Prabhur Sanjarsha Deki Unmata Hana Sanna Sagrahana Koila Varanasigiya. After seeing that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the renounced order, Purushottama Acharya became like a madman, and immediately himself went to Varanasi to take sannyas. Chaitanya Guru Tanna Oggad Yilen Tanre Vedanta Padiya Padal Samastalo Kere. At the conclusion of his sannyas, his spiritual master, Chaitanya Nanda Bharati, ordered him, read the Vedanta Sutra and teach it to all others. Parama Viraktatena Parama Pandit Koyamane Astri Jati Sri Krishna Charit. Swarupa Damodar was a great renunciant as well as a great learned scholar. With heart and soul he took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Nischinte Krishna Bhajiva Ito Korane Unmade Korila Tenna Shanna Shograhane. He was very enthusiastic to worship Sri Krishna without disturbance, and therefore, almost in madness, he accepted the sannyas order. Sanna Shakorila Shikha Shutta Chagarup Yoga Pattana Nil Nama Haila Swarup. Upon accepting sannyas, Purushottam Acharya followed the regulative principles by giving up his tuft of hair and sacred thread, but he did not accept the saffron-coloured dress. Also, he didn't accept a sannyasi title, but remained as a Naistika brahmachari. Guru Thani Oggamagi Oila Nilachale Rati Dine Krishna Prem Ananda Vibhale. After taking permission from his sannyasa guru, Swarupa Damodar went to Nilachal and accepted the shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then all day and night, in ecstatic love of Krishna, he enjoyed transcendental mellows in the loving service of the Lord. Pandit Jera Obadhi Bhakke Nahi Karo Shane Nirjane Rohai Lok Shaba Nahi Jane. Swarupa Damodar was the limit of all learned scholarship, but he did not exchange words with anyone. He simply remained in a solitary place, and no one could understand where he was. Krishna Rasa Tattavita Deha Prema Rup Shakad Mahaprabhu Ditya Swarup. Sri Swarupa Damodar was the personification of ecstatic love, fully cognizant of the transcendental mellows in relationship with Krishna. He directly represented Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as his second expansion. Grant Shlok Geet Keha Prabhu Bhashya Ane Swarup Parikka Koile Bhache Prabhu Shune. If someone wrote a book or composed verses and songs and wanted to recite them before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Swarup Damodar would first examine them and then correctly present them. Only then would Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu agree to listen. Bhakti Siddhanta Viruddha Ara Rasa Bhas Shunite Nahoi Prabhu Chittara Ulas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was never pleased to hear books or verses opposed to the conclusive statements of devotional service. The Lord did not like hearing rasa bhas, the overlapping of transcendental mellows. Purport: Bhakti Siddhanta Virud refers to that which is against the principle of unity in diversity, philosophically known as achinta bheda bhed, simultaneous oneness and difference, whereas rasa bhasa is something that may appear to be a transcendental mellow, but actually is not. Those who are pure Vaishnavas should avoid both these things opposed to devotional service. These misconceptions practically parallel the Mayavad philosophy. If one indulges in Mayavad philosophy, he gradually falls down from the platform of devotional service. By overlapping mellows, ras abhas, one eventually becomes a prakrita sahajya and takes everything to be very easy. One may also become a member of the Baul community and gradually become attracted to material activities. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore advised us to avoid Bhakti Siddhanta Virud and Ras Abhas. In this way, the devotee can remain pure and free from fall-downs. Everyone should try to remain aloof from Bhakti Siddhanta Virud and Ras Abhas. Text 114. Attaiva Swarup Age Khore Pore Kan Shuddha Hoy Jyoti Prabhu Ghara Na Shravan. It was the practice of Sri Damodar Goswami to examine all literatures to find out whether their conclusions were correct. Only then would he allow them to be heard by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Vidyapati Chandidas Shri Git Govind Etina Gite Karana Prabhura Anand. Sri Swarupa Damodar used to read the poems of Vidyapati and Chandidas and Jayadev Goswami's Sri Gita Govind. He used to make Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very happy by singing these songs. Sangite Gandharva Sham Shastri Brihaspati Damodara Sham Ar Nahi Mahamati. Swarupa Damodar was expert a musician as the Gandharvas, and in scriptural discussion he was just like Brihaspati, the priest of the heavenly gods. Therefore it is to be concluded that there was no great personality quite like Swarupa Damodar. So that the name Damodar was given to him by Mahaprabhu because he was expert in singing and music. Damodar, so he was known as Swarup Damodar or Damodar Swarup. And he actually composed a book of songs called Sangeet Damodar. Text 117. Advaita Nityanandir Parama Priyatama Shiva Shadi Bhakto Ghanir Hoya Prana Shama. Sri Swarup Damodar was very dear to Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu. And he was the life and soul of all the devotees, headed by Srivas Thakur. Shai Damodar Ashi Danda Bhatta Haila Sharane Podiya Shlok Podite Logila. When Swarup Damodar came to Jagannath Puri, he fell flat before the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, offering him obeisances and reciting a verse. And this is the verse, right, that Sachidev is pointing out. Hello Dut Nita Kedaya Vishadoya Pranamilad Amodoya Samjat Chasta Vivadoya Rasadoya Chitar Piton Madaya Shashvat Bhakti Vinodoya Shamadoya Madhurja Majadoya Sri Chaitanya Doya Nidhe Thavadoya Bhuyad Amandodoya. It's like doya, doya, doya.
13 times doya.
13 times in the verse. Mercy. And the translation, O ocean of mercy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, let there be an awakening of your auspicious mercy, which easily drives away all kinds of material lamentation by making everything pure and blissful. Indeed, your mercy awakens transcendental bliss and covers all material pleasures. By your auspicious mercy, quarrels and disagreements arising among different scriptures are vanquished. Your auspicious mercy pours forth transcendental mellows, and thus causes the heart to jubilate. Your mercy, which is full of joy, always stimulates devotional service and glorifies conjugal love of God. May transcendental bliss be awakened within my heart by your causeless mercy. Unquote. And he's quoting this verse from Sri Chaitanya Chandrodaya Natak 8.10 about describing the Lord's causeless mercy. So, yes, Lord Chaitanya, of course, is the incarnation of mercy. And one devotee in Norway's name is Prem Avatar, the incarnation of mercy, which means Lord Chaitanya. So this is Krishna in his aspect of wanting to distribute himself and everything in his own treasure house to give that out. That's called the Audarya Lila, you've heard the name. Audarya, to distribute, and Madhurya, to taste the sweetness. Krishna tasting the sweetness, his pastimes with his devotees in the spiritual world. And then the other aspect, or branch you could say, of the Advaya Gyan, its undivided absolute truth, completely indivisible, but mystically is having these aspects. One is to taste, and one is to distribute. So then Lord Chaitanya is the distribution aspect fully. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that Lord Chaitanya distributes his causeless mercy in three ways to the conditioned soul. Every living entity is morose in the material world because he's always in want. He undergoes a great struggle for existence and tries to minimize his miserable condition by squeezing the utmost pleasure out of this world. But the living entity is never successful in this endeavour. What to speak of being unsuccessful, it's also reactionary, causing future suffering. The more the living entity, the conditioned soul, extends their consciousness into the realm of the senses for enjoyment, the more it's creating the future creation of material forms. But the living entity is never successful in this endeavour. While in a miserable condition, a person sometimes seeks the favour of the Supreme Lord. But this is very difficult for materialistic people to obtain. So that's piety, right? Material piety, karma kanda, praying to gods or God for help in life. You know, as people do, pray to the Lord for this help in every way with their life and their relationships and enjoyments and family affairs and everything else. So it's a form of piety, because at least they're approaching the Lord. That's good. But however, when one becomes Krishna conscious by the grace of the Lord, the fragrance of the lotus feet of the Lord expands, and in this way a materialist may gain freedom from his miseries. Actually, his mind is cleansed by his transcendental connection with the lotus feet of the Lord. At such a time, one is enlightened by the loving service of the Lord. So it said, whatever is your situation, your position in life, if you have full of material desires, or if you have no material desires, or whatever it is, then you should chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Because eventually you'll come to the stage of love of Godhead. And there's no other way. You have to go through the various stages of clearing, the various coverings, koshas. They're like sheaths of the subtle body. Generally it's divided into three in the Gita. There's ahamkara, false ego, and the manas, the mind, and the buddhi, the intellect. But there is actually, within that gradation, there's a gradation. It's all part of the linga sharira, the subtle body. You know, it's like astral body, mental body, the different stages, and there all has to be cleansed and purified. Cheto darpana marjanam, right? If the mirror is dusty, then you're looking in the mirror, but you can't see yourself. Of course, but then if you clean it, then you can see yourself. And it's reflecting everything clearly. The advice of the scriptures, the teachings, the real identity of the holy name, and so forth. There are many different kinds of scriptures, and by reading them, one often becomes puzzled. But when one receives the mercy of the Lord, his confusion is mitigated. It's like when Krishna said to Arjuna in the Gita, and now what I'm going to tell you, in the 9th chapter, from whatever you have heard, or whatever you will hear in the future, this will be clear. This will be clear. Not only are scriptural disparities resolved, but a kind of transcendental bliss is awakened, and in this way one is fully satisfied. The transcendental loving service of the Lord constantly engages the conditioned soul in serving the Lord's lotus feet. So there's no gap there. There's no gap in which, so in this little gap, this space, this liminal space between one, service and the next, there is no gap. Because in that space, many things can happen, right? You could start speculating about things. Speculating, worrying, digressing. But in the devotional service, there's no space. It's continuous. It's everything that is... it's like investing money, right, in the bank. It doesn't matter if you have any small amount of capital, £10, £20, but you invest that in the bank. And as long as it's going into the bank, then the what do you call it, is coming, the interest. Yeah. So the interest is coming back to you, the capital interest, but that interest, the person isn't taking that out for enjoying themselves. They're just reinvesting it. So it's constant reinvestment, constant giving, constant sacrifice. And this is the real life. So it's not like we'll have a gap in that and then we'll find some enjoyment somewhere else. It doesn't exist. It's not real. That's the illusion of Maya, of course. So through such fortunate engagement, one's transcendental love for Krishna is increased. One's position is thus completely purified, and one is filled with transcendental bliss, accompanied by the spirit soul's jubilation. Thus, the transcendental causeless mercy of Lord Krishna is manifested in the heart of the devotee. At such a time, material needs no longer exist. Yeah, I mean material desires, yeah, of course. No need eating, sleeping, those things. But that's going on as if automatically, like the senses engage with their objects. Like in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, then the senses are engaged, eyes for seeing, ears for hearing. But the person is not really connected with that, they're aloof from that. So it's like, if you're riding a horse is doing many things, right? Eating, passing, urine, doing so many things. But, you're riding the horse, aren't you? So St. Francis, he called the body brother ass. At such a time, material needs no longer exist. The lamentation that invariably accompanies material desires also vanishes. Yeah, material desires are always accompanied by so much lamentation. Nasochati, nakanchati, is worrying if they'll be fulfilled, and if they would be fulfilled, to what extent, or in precisely the way which I like, or I think I like, which you don't even really know what will really satisfy us, even on the material level. And then the worry that then if I do get something or achieve something, that also will be lost or taken away. So it's full of lamentation, of course. By the grace of the Lord, one is elevated to the transcendental position, and then the transcendental mellows of the spiritual world are manifested in him. One's devotional service then becomes firm, and one engages in the Lord's transcendental loving service with great determination. All these combine to fully awaken the devotee's heart with love of Krishna. So you have the stages in bhakti, anishtita bhakti, nishta bhakti, and then only is coming ruchi, taste after that. So before that it's sort of coming and going, it's mixed. Sometimes a little bit of taste, and then the material side is kind of coming on stronger. Because you have to remember, many, many, many lifetimes in the material world, different bodies. So it's not so easy just in one shot that everything will be just thrown off, you see. But again, it's all through the mercy, the doya, that's what this verse is saying. Through the mercy of the Lord, the transcendental bliss can be awakened, and that will automatically dismiss all material pleasures or the concept that one can enjoy through material enjoyment. So, in the beginning, a conditioned soul is bereft of Krishna consciousness and is always morose in his material activities. Later, by associating with a pure devotee, one becomes inquisitive to know the absolute truth. In this way, one begins to engage in the transcendental service of the Lord. So really, devotional service, it's from the Lord, of course, but through the devotee, always, must be. It's very rare a soul would just, without any contact with devotees, would just, out of the blue, decide to, serve Krishna or worship Krishna. Or they might have some attraction to Krishna. Madan Mohan, you see the form of Krishna, and like Srila Prabhupada said on the Krishna book, the painting on the front, Radha and Krishna, and he says in the introduction, then somebody seeing that for the first time would say, who's that boy and who's that girl with him, because they're very attractive, isn't it? And so Madan Mohan means, his attractiveness will cover the mind, will automatically is so much more than any material enjoyments or happiness. And particularly Krishna as Madan Mohan, the first contact we have is just, wow, who's that? You never think of God as, in such a way, from the sort of impersonal idea of the cosmic source intelligence of the universe or the universes. And as to Krishna, not only that, but Krishna is ultimate, because Narayan, as we mentioned, you see Narayan, his form is straight, in the forearms, so that means he could enter into you, but he could also come out, could also slip out. But Krishna is bending like this. It's like a hook. When he goes in, he can't come out. It's Tribhangananda. So then, the Madan Mohan is the first attraction, but there's no seva there as such. Just an initial attraction and thinking about it. And then next is Govindaji. So Govinda engages us. Srila Prabhupada calls him the functional serving deity, Govinda. Sri Radha Govinda. So that's Abhideya. That's the stage of practice of sadhana bhakti. And the things we're doing, everything we're doing, right? Hearing, chanting, serving, cooking, cleaning, everything. There's 9 things. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam. And but that's very important, the first stage of the attraction, and that's called Sambandha Gyan. Coming in contact with Krishna in that form, Madan Mohan, then it comes to the point of, well, if this is the Supreme Person, what's my relationship with him? So that Sambandha means relationship. I have a relationship with him, and Maya, his different various energies, the Jeev Shakti and the Maya Shakti, And what is the relation between them? Between Krishna to the Jiva, and then Krishna to Maya, and the Jiva to Maya, and the Maya to Krishna, and so on. It's like a triangle. See, and they're all related. It's like, when you have a triangle, it's a very solid thing. They're all connected. You can't be separated. So that's called Sambandha Gyan. And then we engage in service, Abhideya. So in order that our attempt to practice Krishna consciousness has real meaning and depth, it must be based on Sambandha, not just sentimental. Oh, chanting Hare Krishna, very nice association, go to the temple, everything like that. That's fine. But it's coming from that foundation, that basis. I'm doing this because I have a relationship with Krishna. That's my eternal nature, as part and parcel. And through this practice, then I'm able to somehow have some connection with the Swarup Shakti, and this will save me and protect me from the effects of the Maya Shakti. See, so it's based on the Sambandha. It must be, otherwise it doesn't really have much substance to practice. And then the natural stage go to prayojan, the result of it, the effect of it is Krishna, love of Krishna. Yeah, so as he says here, yes. So the conditioned soul, then association with the pure devotee, inquisitive to know the absolute truth. In this way one begins to engage in the transcendental service of the Lord. So it's by connection and introduction that we actually our soul is actually elevated to the spiritual plane. It's not by anything we do, just ourselves. It's like the example of the passport. By our practices we're qualified for the passport. Passport means liberation. You're going to the Tatastha stage, out of the Maya and into the Krishna's Brahman Shakti. Okay, so but to actually get connection with the service of Krishna, you need visa. You can't get visa from this side. Passport you can get, anyone can get, more or less, if they do the right things, etc. Give the money, get the passport, like that. But the visa, no, it's given or not given. It's nothing. It's not our choice. It's their choice. So when Guru Maharaj, they asked Guru Maharaj once about this Swarup Shakti and Swarup Siddhi and Vastu Siddhi, what's the difference? So he explained, Swarup Siddhi, the soul knows their eternal relationship with Krishna, one of the 5 primary and secondary rasas, but it's as if they qualified, they've got, they've done the work, they've passed the exam, they've got the diploma, it's on the wall, but they haven't actually started their work, their job in that field. So it's qualification, but then Vastu Siddhi means recognition, he said. Recognition from the higher souls. That's the only way. You can imagine, even if there's an ordinary person somewhere in a family, in a street, look at the doors of the houses, 2, 4, 6, 8, right? So many houses and doors. And behind each door there's a family, and a whole world is existing of what's going on there. So even in any ordinary family, you can't just go to their door, knock on the door and say, "Oh, can I come in, be part of this family, please?" Okay, pardon? What? Who are you? Right? Then what to speak of the spiritual world? It's not very like a cheap thing in that way. So, but if you get introduction, if someone who is very close with Krishna, whose relationship with Krishna is already established and functioning, and they're very trusted by Krishna, as the old servant, who's been serving for generations, and the family, the master of the house will give them the keys and give them full permission. Oh, you organise everything here. Who comes in, who doesn't, everything that goes on. So like that, such a person, if they recommend, soul, it's very good. They're trying to do some service. They're really trying hard, and you please see them, look on them. And Krishna and Radha, they will do that on that recommendation. That's a very natural thing of affection, So it's always through the devotee, even if it's reading a book, spiritual book. Well, where do you get that from a devotee? Or even if you didn't, even if you found it on the table in a train station, well, you look in the book and then you say, well, who's that written by? Oh, some devotee. It's, behind it always a person. And by the Lord's mercy, one is completely convinced of the value of devotional service. When one can see the pastimes of the Lord everywhere, he is firmly situated in transcendental bliss. Such a devotee is relieved of all kinds of material desires, and he preaches the glories of the Lord all over the world. These Krishna-conscious activities separate him from material activities and the desire for liberation, because at every step the devotee feels himself connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although such a devotee may sometimes be involved in household life, he is untouched by material existence due to his constant engagement in devotional service. Thus, everyone is advised to take shelter of devotional service to become happy and liberated. So in one way, Krishna consciousness and engagement in devotional service is the very normal and natural thing. Okay, from the point of view, from the negative side, from the point of view of the fallen, conditioned soul, it's a very high thing, of course, yeah? But actually, in that plane, in that layer of consciousness who are there, it's very normal, very natural, as their relationship with Krishna, in the spiritual world. So Guru Maharaj says the Vaishnav, or Vaishnavi, that's the normal thinking person. It's the others who are abnormal. And that's why a real devotee, they're very, very normal, very natural. It's not like, if you meet them, it's not like this person is doing something, they're doing some other thing, something called devotional service. It's a very natural, normal thing. But then, after meeting them or talking with them, later on, when you're outside that direct association, you'll think, wow, what was that? That was something extraordinary. So, yes, that's Achinta Veda Ved. It's very normal, very natural, because it's so high that it's come back, it's gone through past the stage of liberation, and in the aprakrita plane, it's looking like ordinary things, like prakriti, prakrita and aprakrit. So it's like prakriti, like normal relationships, people with each other, sometimes even arguing, sometimes fighting, sometimes many things. And that's the original form of that type of life and relationship. And between the two, so many things. It's from the negative side, from the nasty side of where the ahamkara, the false ego, is put into those relationships. So it's like you have sweet rice but it's got sand in it, or glass, bits of glass. It's like that, painful because of the false ego and the clash that causes. So then through different stages of that, lighter, 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 up to the stage then of liberation, Shanta Rasa, the yogis like completely equipoised, samadhi. And then beyond, from Shanta, Dasya, Sakha, Vatsalya, Madhurya, in the positive side. And this is the reflection, perverted or inverted reflection of that. So anyway, at least if we have faith that such things exist, then that's enough. As Guru Maharaj says, to have some connection with the soil of that plane, through, even if it seems quite remote or quite far, to have connection with the real thing, even very apparently distant, is very important. But to have an immediate connection with something which looks like that real thing but isn't, that's very undesirable. As he said, prakriti sahajya. It looks like it's like you've got lots of money, actually, but there's no value. It's monopoly money. It doesn't. You think you're very wealthy, but if you go to the bank, it gives monopoly money. They say, sorry, we can't. It's not backed by anything. We can't give you the gold. So it's better to have. Is it better to have a lot of false money or have no money, perhaps? At least if you have no money, you can get the real money, isn't it, in the future? So the whole point is that it's the quality of the thing, really, as Guru Maharaj said, not the quality, so quantity rather. So quality and quantity, yeah. So as the quality increases, the quantity will increase in a natural way. But generally, from the material side, if the quantity of something increases, quality must decrease. That's the nature of material energy. So if the quantity increases, it becomes dissolved, it becomes more diluted, you say, yeah. So then Guru Maharaj was encouraging us to try to go for the quality of the thing, which is just meaning, I don't mean it to sound like an analytical thing, but it's about try to give oneself and serve and sacrifice and surrender. Because love means sacrifice and surrender. It's not an emotion, just sit there feeling this emotion. It's like, how does it manifest in seva, like sacrifice. And I remember there was a verse in the Gita I was reading recently. It was interesting. I think it's in the very near the beginning, perhaps second chapter. And Krishna said, "In the beginning, I created all the generations of the different forms of life, 8,400,000, right? And so many human beings, human forms. And along with them, I created yajna, or sacrifice." So from that, just that, you can tell the purpose of human life is yajna, is sacrifice. Can't be separated. So unless one is doing sacrifice, then not a human being. Even materially, sacrificing for the family, for the job, so many sacrifices we have to make, right, in family life, for the children, education, clothing, feeding, so many things. So that's it. So, but then, even animals are doing that also, aren't they? They're going out from the nest, finding, insects or berries or food and bringing it back to feed their young. From that point, it's common to all species. The eating, right, 4 things: eating, sleeping, reproducing, and defending. Defending means I have to protect my space, It's like that in one form or another. Everyone's doing that. That's so, like Srila Prabhupada always said, to perfect those 4 attributes doesn't make a human being, or certainly not a spiritual person. Perfect eating, perfect sleeping, perfect mating, perfect. What's the other one? Defending, yeah. A polished animal life, as you would say. See, so that's why the higher thing, a Brahmin, is supposed to be connected with Brahman, the spirit. That's why they're the teachers. It's not a caste thing, like, that means therefore they get privileges because they're like that. It's a natural. Chaturvarna maya shishtam guna karma vibhagasha. I created this natural division in the beginning. Intelligent class, military class, mercantile class and labour class. Natural. But guna karma vibhagasha, the division is your quality and your behaviour, not your birth, not the bloodline. So, like a Shudra who's engaged in spiritual activities, even, what to speak of devotional service, that's Brahmin. And a Brahmin who's doing all wrong things, non-spiritual things, he shouldn't be recognised as such. Anyway, this is other question, but it's very natural. You look at the body: head, arms to protect, stomach to feed, to nourish, to maintain, and legs to move ahead. So, as they say, even if you didn't have legs, you could live, but without a head, definitely you can't live. So that's the most important in that sense. So that therefore, the social body should be led by the spiritual people who can see. The head is on the top, can see the furthest in the perspective, right? What's the overall destination, where to go? Legs can't see that, or stomach, or even arms. So society is just led by the stomach. Economic market forces dictate where the society's going. That's like society ruled by the stomach. That's not very could be very helpful ultimately. And that's how it is, So those people who are expert in that field, they're given much honour and respect. And the spiritual people, whether it be devotees or priests or imam or whatever, that's kind of a side issue. It's some of your choice, if you want to follow religion or not, like that. It's all very topsy-turvy, in Kali Yuga. But the good news is, of course, that the holy name Harinama eva kevalam, Kalo nastyeva gatirandita. The way, gati, the path, the way in Kali Yuga is the holy name, the holy name, the holy name. It's got to be something very, very simple, because people don't have the brain substance to understand too much about philosophy and so on. The unfortunate, misguided, always mentally disturbed. It's in the Bhagavatam, right, in the beginning, symptoms of the Kali Yuga. So to make it all very simple, the holy, these 16 syllables, 32 syllables, 16 words, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So everything is there. That's marvellous, isn't it? The highest thing can come in the lowest place, or people in the lowest place. It's a mystical, inconceivable thing. Yeah? So it's 1:30. Well, Artie is supposed to be normally... What? It's normally 1 actually, isn't it? No. What is it? Okay. Do you want any quick questions for you? Good.
Can we illegally go there without visa?
Illegally? I suppose in the material world some people can escape the net, right? They could do that. But then that's probably even that would be they would have some contacts, right? Somewhere, You get, they call it diplomatic immunity. So they get fast tracked, go through that. It's people you know, yeah. But unfortunately, in the spiritual example, that's not such thing, There's no mistake, or any thing. Because it's very clear, obviously, that somebody, that place is an inviolate plane, and that's another reason why, as we know, without going into this whole big question about the jiva soul not falling, right, from the spiritual world, Vaikuntha. It's like, if you look at it philosophically, someone could debate it, yes or no, what. But if you actually think about what it must be, the spiritual world, it cannot be a place that could be so insecure that someone at any point could just fall from there, I mean, then what's the point? How is that the spiritual world? Spiritual world means Nitya Lila. It is eternal pastimes with the Lord. So a soul entering there is in the Nitya Lila, even if they've come from the negative side, from the conditioned world. So once they enter the Nitya Lila, there's no difference in that sense between them and the eternal associates. who have always been in Nityalila, and were never attached to, Jiva Shakti souls. The Swarup Shakti souls, they're eternal associates of the Lord, the Parshads. So when the soul from this side enters there, Nityalila, he's one of them. That's Nityalila. It's not like, oh, that one, we have to have some suspicion about this one because they came from there. Maybe they'll do some mischief or keep an eye on them, not like that. It's a very, very silly idea, actually, think about it.
I guess with regard to the visa, it's so conditional again, like you were saying, right, the passport. But I guess our hope is that the Lord's mercy is unconditional.
Yes.
Like the visa might even be given without any
Qualification, that's right. So that's the question is how to get the visa. If that visa is unconditional and is really not based on qualification, it's just based on their wish, perfection.
So do souls from there volunteer to come down?
Oh, okay, that's another, yes, of course. They're commissioned, They're commissioned to canvas in the material side.
But if the soul has no desire, only wants to serve, right? Here, there, whatever, just knows.
It's a unit of service
Yeah.
because it's part, not the whole. And the part must be it's like the river is a small part of water and the ocean's the big whole. So the river's going to the ocean automatically. It wants to be connected, it wants to have go to its source, back to its source, become one, quote unquote, with its source. Means in relation, And like that, wanders through many places, on the way, of course, yeah. So we need connection with the whole.
And then
Lacking
it doesn't
that,
matter where you are, here, there, or somewhere else. You have your service to do,
Yeah,
and there is no want. There's whatever happens. That is like that comparison, like in a materialistic person has so many wants and so many anxieties, and then in comparison with what we hear, the pure devotee doesn't want anything from the Lord.
That's right.
Just wants to do what is required.
and we have to look at ourselves and say how much is desire to satisfy the Lord, and what is there in their desire for liberation, because that's also an artha, I mean, I always think in the Shastakam, the last two verses, the one before the last one, then Lord Chaitanya is saying, Yugayatam nimeshena chakshusha prabhishayatam shunyayatam jagat sarvam govind virahename. In separation from you, the whole universe is a void, tears are pouring from my eyes, and everything's just like a void without you. Okay, and then the last one, it's almost like even there, some is, of course, desire for the Lord is a pure thing, but there's some, I want something. I want to be connected. And in the last verse, even that's gone. It's like, Asheshiva Padaratam Penastimam, whether you embrace me, crush me in your embrace, or you break my heart by never giving me your darshan or association, whatever you like to do, you can do, because you're my Lord, unconditionally. That's a full self-surrender, So that's, even desire for liberation is a contaminant, ultimately. Desire for material enjoyment or desire for liberation. Karma and jnana. Anyabhilasita. Shunyam. Jnana, karma, anabritam. Pure devotional service. First definition Rupa Goswami gives. It's from the beginning. It's devoid of desire for material enjoyment and liberation. And must be favourable to the Lord, in other words. Like demons, right? to have a relationship with Krishna, but they're playing a part in the pastimes. So in that way you could say it's a kind of service, but from the negative side, it's not favourable, directly. So,
Were you saying something before about, I don't know if I heard this properly, getting some taste sometimes?
Yeah.
Taste, and then something like side by side, material desires increase?
yes, mixed, So that taste which we get is like like they even say it's a taster, isn't it? When you go in the Starbucks, they give you a small thing like this. It's a taster. If you like it, then you can get the big cup. Yeah, so Krishna gives that, but that's not really ruchi. It's something like ruchi abhas, It's a reflection of the taste. But even in the material world, in the shadow potency, Maya potency, there is enjoyment. We're not saying there's no enjoyment. There is enjoyment, but there's a lot of strings attached. It's reactionary. It's not pure. But something is there. Otherwise, why would people be doing it? Everyone would just give up and go home straight away. But there's enough there to keep you going, to keep you thinking. Yes, if I just get this next thing or achieve this thing, I'll be happy, I'll be fulfilled, satisfied. Of course, it must be there. That's Maya, very clever, very excellent job she's doing. Yeah,
So many things.
sure. And there's no way you can fight with Maya on that one. She's got maybe 100 arms, but even 8 arms, right? So give you everything, just throwing everything at you, so you'd be overwhelmed. So that's a great. How can you overcome that? It's only by mercy, by doya, somehow or other. So you have to pray for that. And you can't play. You can't play with Maya. You can't play with fire. Just say, "Oh, I have." At the same time, said, sorry, I don't want to do the answer, but at the same time it said, one must be intelligent. In the conditioned stage, in the stage of sadhana bhakti, it gives an example in the Bhagavatam like the horse. There's a very wild, unruly horse. And when you first ride the horse, you can't possibly hold the reins like that, because it'll be repressed. And as soon as you space out, your attention is gone, it'll just bolt, So you have to allow it a little bit, maybe go this way, if it wants to go and eat the grass, a little bit over there. Okay, then gradually, direct it back. So like that, adjusted, one must have adjusted, proper adjustment, religion means proper adjustment. So that's also there, So we'd better finish now. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sorry. Thanks. Hare Krishna.
Sarvabhauma Maharaj Ki Jai.
Hare
Ajase Krishna Gaura Bhakta Vichekanya Prabhupada Charinga Ki Jai. Prabhupada Mahansa Pajya Vicharya Varya Sudhata Smadhya Sundar Vinari Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Prabhupada Mahansa Pajya Vicharya Varya Sudhata Smadhya Sundar Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Prabhupada Mahansa Pajya Vicharya Varya Sudhata Smadhya Sundar Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Prabhupada Gaur Kishore Das Baba Ji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Prabhupada Satyananda Bhakti Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Prabhupada Jagannath Das Baba Ji Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Baladevi Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jagannath Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai. Namatam Shivananda Srivas Acharya Prabhu Ki Jai. Jai Krishna Chaitanya Goswami Ki Jai.